Well, we're here at the CCA Workbench, and Dave, we're talking about tarpon, one of my favorite species, as you know.
You know, he is your favorite species. You probably know a lot more about tarpon than I do. But Texas tarpon get really big. For the longest time, they were the tarpon fishery off Texas was one of the best there was. And then they kind of disappeared for a little while in the 80s and 90s. They think it might have been because they dammed up a lot of the rivers and the fresh water wasn't coming out as much anymore. And so they went away, but then they came back. So now they found out that they're just a little bit further offshore a lot of times up in the Galveston area, but down in the southern part of the state, even further south than Galveston, they get right up on the beach. But within a mile, and then in Galveston, they're even a little, between 5 to 15 miles, sometimes a little closer. But now's the time to be coming for them because the tarpon are moving through they come through twice a year pretty much, and they come through in the spring. Some of them hang out all year all summer, and then another big fat migration comes through August, September. And some of the best tarpon fishing there is out there from Padre Island, Galveston, south all the way to the border, and a lot of the passes and the jetties. Any place where there's good tidal movement coming through, these big tarpon will concentrate there, and the guys will fish for them with baits or lures, and there's quite a bit of difference in all the different lures and baits that they use. Now, one thing that's a lot different is they'll troll off the beach in a lot of the deeper places where they're finding them. They'll look for fish that are broaching and rolling on the surface and try to get up in front of them and troll baits through them, or even troll live baits. But if they're not rolling like that, they use their electronics a lot to try to find these fish suspended. And they will be. They'll be driving around and they'll look for them and try to find them suspended, and then they'll try to get their trolled baits to that depth. And here's some of the coon pop I was talking about is one of the baits that they troll a lot. 4 to 6 coon pops out there, either with an ounce jig head on it or a half-ounce jig head, usually with a curly tail or a paddle tail of some sort. And they're trolling those things along, probably at like 2 miles an hour or less. A nice speed that keeps the baits in the area where they think the tarpon are suspended. They'll also cast lures. Mirror lures are great to cast to them, especially that one right there, the 85M or the 77MR, even one of these down here. A big lure that really, you don't really have to do much with them. You just cast them out in front of them and then just wind it back. You don't really have to jerk them a whole lot. Just a steady retrieve will get the bite a lot of times. And if you want to, the only bad thing about these mirror lures is you'll lose a lot of fish because they're heavier. And these treble hooks, a lot of times, tarpons are known for, if you're not using a circle hook, a lot of times they'll toss any of these lures with a treble hook on them. So you can actually go ahead and put you some straight line circle hooks on here, and your hookup ratio will probably be a lot better. I mean, you're not probably going to get any less bites, and the ones that you do get bit, you'll probably hang on to longer.
That's good advice.
Yeah, and these guys are using bait casting reels, sometimes TLD 20s, a good, if you're casting a good 7-foot stout rod, with
those are the Ricky rod,
the little Ricky red rod, and you put 65-pound braid on a big braid caster.
Heavy action.
Yep, and maybe like 40-pound or 60-pound monofilament leader. You want it to be a good length. These fish are pretty good size.
Loaded up with the diamond braid.
Yep, and then put you about a 4-foot leader on there or a little bit more, and get out to those areas where those fish come through. They follow a highway. They call it the tuna alley, and it'll run from a mile off the beach to 10 miles off the beach, but they're going to be in that area, in that depth of water, usually around some bait probably. And if you can get in front of those fish and troll, a lot of guys, the inboard boats do really well there trolling. And if you can get in front of them with a trolling motor, if you have a boat small enough that you can troll with a trolling motor, you get a lot of bites that way too, because they can be a little spooky, even though they're not getting a whole lot of pressure. you know, there are a few guides that are working them there. You go to TexasTarponGuides.com. Mike Williams is a guy that I talked to, and he had a lot of information. But you know, you can make these coon pops real easily yourself. You can go online and make them out of zip ties and the number 14 hooks, and get, you know, just do all kinds of really cool stuff out there for tarpon, because you know, you don't get a chance to catch a 200-pound fish, you know, very often. And that is a ginormous tarpon they have there. So,
Brie, you ever caught one that big?
Yes.
A 200-pounder?
No. See,
always
he got
say
me.
yes.
I was going
Yes.
to say she was cheating on me.
It felt like a 200-pounder. It definitely did. It was a long fight.